This is the Iron Sharpens Iron Movement, sharing insights into the power of people-centric leading.
Hi, this is Jim, and today we welcome to our tribe a CEO, an international executive consultant, transformational business and life coach, a trainer, keynote speaker, and international bestseller. Her engaging methods and techniques addresses human capital, leadership, diversity, and change management in business and personal situations, and is very world-renowned in her techniques. She will assist you in reconnecting with you and understanding your purpose, embracing your potential, and achieving your dreams. The Iron Sharpens Iron movement is brought to you by N2 Growth, a leader in executive search, leadership development, and talent management. We find and develop the world's best leaders. Learn more about our practice by visiting us at n2growth.com or click on the link in the show notes of this podcast. Well, hello, Dr. Forest, and welcome to the Iron Sharpens Iron tribe. We are really honored to have you here. And the first question I would have for you right off the bat, do you mind if I call you Natalie?
Actually, I don't just not mind. I would prefer if you just call me Natalie. And thank you for having me.
Oh, well, it certainly is an honor to have you here. You know, and International Women's Month is in March. We are recording this episode in March. We are absolutely thrilled to have discussions on all things leadership and personal performance with you and to talk about your perspective. And you have certainly been on the international stage, talking to senior executives, talking to mid-level managers, all about how you make yourself better. And I'm just so excited to really dive into these things. And, you know, as I mentioned, we're recording here in March for our audience, and something that's happening, Natalie, to us right now is we're in a global pandemic. We're, coronavirus right now is all across the world, and it's affecting everything in daily life and in business. And I would love to just open this up with, what do you think are some of the things that leaders should be thinking about even in terms of human capital?
Oh, wow. That is such a loaded question.
Isn't it though?
So,
I know.
and I love it because I can now take it anywhere I want to. So, first of all, I don't necessarily use the word should, and we can go into that and why at a later point in time. However, I think times like this are calling leaders, and not necessarily just the elected leaders, but leaders that
hmm
actually are what I, from a historical standpoint, call the true leaders. And when I still used to teach, and even in my consulting and coaching now, a leader is not somebody who always makes the decisions by him or herself. A leader is somebody who cares and puts others first. And I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
that's really what this time is calling for. And of course, you with your experience and your uh, lifetime experience knows this. It's about what is best for others. And in times like this, that really, I believe, needs to be the focus. So the pandemic, epidemic, any kind of spread of illness or even natural disasters is extremely scary. And the fear usually is based, in my opinion and my experience and my studies, on the fact that we are not confident that we can actually overcome this or make it through. So that's number one. And as leaders, then we're called to say, number one, yes, you can. And number two, together we can. So my recommendation in these situations is, yes, make sure, you put your oxygen mask on first, and
Yeah.
then be sure to go out and put the oxygen mask on everybody else.
It
So
sounds,
if you have enough
yes,
stuff, sorry, but if you have enough stuff, share it now with others because you can make it.
absolutely. That's awesome. And it sounds like too that you're saying you don't have to have the name tag behind it. You don't have to have the title. You don't have to be the recognized leader. You can lead from any phase of the organization or be any person and still be a leader to meet the definition that you just talked about.
Absolutely. And I think that's really when we see true leaders. A
Mm,
position is a position, but you don't earn trust or faith or any of that sort by a title. You asked me in the beginning, can you just call me Natalie? Yeah, because the doctor doesn't make me who I am, right? The person
right.
who I am makes me who I am. And I know young people, children, there are so many children in our world right now who are true leaders. They just do
Yeah.
what is right. They start, knitting socks for the elderly, taking
Mm,
cards to hospitals, being out there picking up the trash to save the environment. Nobody made them the leader of X club. They're just doing it. So that's really, and I think that's the difference between a true leader and a wannabe leader.
so it's interesting through my experiences. I because I'd like to get your perspective on this. I don't know if it's just a sixth sense that I felt that I always had, but I always thought that I could walk through a crowd no matter where it was and I could almost see the leaders. You could almost pick that person out in a crowd who the actual leader was just by the way they carried themselves, by the way they did interact in a social situation and all that stuff. It was almost like it was obvious who a lot of these leaders were, and I'm wondering, have you ever had that sense yourself that you can almost see who these leaders are? And again, they're not hiding behind a title.
Absolutely. Now I have to add, I'm quite intuitive anyhow, but it
Hmm.
is about being able to pick up those intrinsic behaviors or characteristics. And it is not always, or most of the time, it is not the person who talks the loudest,
Yeah, I
because
love that.
then
Right.
we're going into stuff like you appear to be important, therefore you are. No, most people who are important will listen and hear before they speak. And they will put it all together and say, okay, this is how it needs to be. This is what we need to do based on the five people that I just heard. That's where we need to go, and incorporating all of that instead of claiming that they know everything.
Which you've seen those types many times, also, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, of
Yeah.
course, they're everywhere.
That's exactly, and of course they're the loudest. You're right. You're exactly right.
Usually,
So
yes.
I'm not going to let you get away without me coming back on a comment that we started the show off with. You said, I don't like to use the word should. So I want to pull that string a little bit more. And is it a shall? Is it a could? What's your adverseness to having the word should used? And do you think it's just too stringent and it box somebody in, or what are your thoughts on that? What are your reactions?
I think the word should to me is an overused psychological term intended to make you feel guilty,
Oh,
by
okay.
applying somebody else's morals to you. And so, what I mean by that is, if you think about when that word is used, it usually comes from a precipice of an expectation, or I know what needs to get done. So I think I say this a lot when I talk to people, when I speak. There's the idea of you really should call your mother, right? So you should call your mother because you haven't talked to her in a week. So you should make that call. But what if I don't feel like making that call? If I now call her because moral guidance tells me I should, somebody else's moral guidance. So I'm going to call my mother, and I'm really not into talking to her, right? So
Mm.
I'm on the phone with her while I'm talking with her, doing the dishes, wondering what else to do. I don't really listen to her. And in that call, the energetic exchange tells her that I'm not really interested. I begin to get upset at her because she keeps repeating everything. And really, the intention, the positive intention of connecting with my mother, has just completely been blown into pieces. That's
You
because
bet.
I did something I should do instead of I did something I want to do.
So does that lead into authenticity?
Absolutely. It also leads into performance, right? It leads
Yeah.
into knowing yourself authentically and doing the things that you can do well when it's the right time for you.
And does it always start, I get, coming back from a leadership perspective or, for the Iron Sharpens Iron tribe, this is even for followership, but does it always start with you? Should it? Oh, I just used the word. Look how that. I'm not going to say, should it start with you? I'm curious, you know, does all beginnings of being a good follower or a good leader or mentor or coach start with you first, looking in the mirror?
The easy answer is yes,
Hmm. Okay.
because we always lead by example. If if I'm not honest with myself, if I don't know my own strengths and weaknesses, how can I appreciate anybody else's? How can I authentically support somebody else or even ask for insights? So,
Right.
absolutely, whenever I talk about leadership, I talk about the three R's, which is respect, relationship, and recognition.
Okay.
And it starts with you. Do I respect myself? Do I take time out when I'm not feeling well? Do I appreciate everything that I am, good, bad, in between? Do I have a good relationship with myself? And then lastly, do I recognize myself the little celebrations, right? Oh, job well done. Do I
Right.
do that? Because if I do that with me, then I can authentically do it with others and it'll come across as authentically. And if I tell a group of people, my team or somebody else's team, I'm not feeling well, therefore I think it's better if we cut today's session short, they know why. And they
Right.
know next time I'll be 200% more and they've experienced me before. There's a trust that is crucial.
There's you bet. It was the word on the tip of my tongue while you were saying that. I was going to say that also. I mean, I think these are the building blocks of teamwork and trust,
Mhm.
because
Absolutely.
you need those. I'm do you see out there when you're interacting with leaders, no matter what business they are involved in, are there a lot of people on autopilot? Are people just pretending to be leaders? Do people just expect themselves to be leaders? Because I've been in the industry for 20 years, I'm a leader now. And by them not living by the three R's that you mentioned, they just are a bit robotic. Another R word, but
Absolutely. It's actually something that, again, it starts with ourselves, right? So the autopilot is huge.
mm,
And it is something that, for example, when we talk about leadership style or management, and I talk about human commitment versus human capital, right?
mm,
So when we just follow what somebody else has done because it's been done for 10 years, it's been done for 15 years, let's not rock the boat. That is, we are on autopilot. We're
yeah,
not open minded enough to realize this is not working. Let's do something else. And having, again, the confidence
mm,
that it can work, or that if it doesn't work, we're still okay because we tried.
right.
And so it's really crucial when I work with, and I'm sorry for interrupting you there,
No,
but
no, no. Yeah.
autopilot is huge and it starts again with ourselves, right? The minute you get up, I call it the hidden power of patterns, but what are those patterns that you have every single day that have a lot of power over just every energetic communication and every physical communication that you have? Because it's
Mm.
all in your subconscious mind and you transfer that out. So you got to get off autopilot and at least understand why you're doing what you're doing, and then you can make an informed choice.
So, Natalie, could you give me an example when you talk about these patterns and being able to recognize them? Could you give me an example of a healthy pattern and then maybe an unhealthy pattern? When you said the moment you get up, so could you maybe give me two examples of an early morning pattern that you think is healthy and not healthy?
Well, first of all, I have to say that depends on the individual, but yes, of course I can.
Yeah, of course, yes. As an
Um,
example, yes.
yeah. So for example, when you get up there, when the alarm clock rings, what's the first thing you say to yourself? That's an easy one, right? Are you like, "Oh gosh, it's 6 o'clock already. Oh, my head hurts. Oh, my arm hurts." Is that the conversation you're having? Now, if that is the conversation you're having, what did you just do to your day?
Yeah, you've become the victim in the first 30 seconds of your day.
Exactly. And you're getting up, and all you're thinking about is, I hope my arm is going to stop hurting. And your whole expression, everything that you're going to do is based on that,
Yeah, bit of a
right?
negative context, you bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can even take that further. Let's say you actually get out of bed without stepping on a toy or whatever, and you're looking outside the window and it's raining. What's the first thing that 80 to 90% of people say when they look out the window and it's raining?
Right. Oh, geez, it's raining. It's going to be a miserable day. It's gray and
I know.
overcast. I don't want to be
Yeah,
out there.
I can't wear my white pants because they're gonna
Yep.
get muddy, blah, blah. And again, right, you're setting your day up that way. And I mean, if you and this is where I say it's individual, if you want to be in that place, and some people do, go for it. Absolutely go for it. For
Mhm.
me, that's not where I would like to be right now.
Right.
So, a healthy pattern for me, and it doesn't happen without practice, right? Nothing does.
Of
So
course, you bet.
and I'm not
Yes.
a morning person, so when that alarm clock rings at 6 AM,
Then watch out.
you know,
Yes.
it's like,
Yep.
okay, alarm clock rings, and I focus inwards and I say, "Okay, it's gonna be a great morning," and I keep my eyes closed at that moment. I said, "It's gonna be a great day. There's gonna be so much good stuff happening," and then I slowly roll out of bed, very slowly, roll out of bed, and I also have a system where I set my alarm clock 10 minutes early so I can snooze it for, like, 10 minutes.
Huh?
That makes
Yep.
me feel really, really good, right? So,
Yes.
it's like, "Ooh, I got 10 more minutes." But when I get up, I try to speak positive. And going back to one of the R's that works for me, I try to talk positive to me. "Oh, you slept really well. What are you going to create today? How can you serve others today? What can you do to just make life magnificent?" And it's not always in those words, but that's the energy that I put into it. And then I get up and it's still, 6 AM and I really don't want to be up. But it's a different approach. And when it rains, I'm like, wow, awesome. We can dance in the puddles. The rain is needed to have more flowers. I mean, whatever I
Yes.
need to come up with. And initially, that is a practice you need to become aware of. And it works differently for everybody, but especially in the morning, whatever works for you as an individual, official leader, not official leader, doesn't matter. You need to be able to carve out some time for you to set up the day in a way that makes it great,
And it doesn't
whatever that
cost you a thing, does it?
is exactly. Now,
Yeah. And
and
Natalie, it's interesting. Study after study has shown that it's natural, or human beings are more inclined to think negatively. It's
mhm,
almost a primal instinct, right? Protect the food, protect the shelter, don't trust anything. All of that goes all the way back to primal times. But the realities are being negative is almost the path of least resistance, and to be positive takes a little bit of awareness and practice. But from what I understand you're saying is still doesn't cost anything, and it's just being very purposeful about it, being aware, self-aware, that you can make these right type of adjustments in your own head.
absolutely. and it goes to something very simple, and I think it's a belief that I have, and I'm certainly not superimposing that on anybody. The belief to me is the way that I see the world is, yes, the easy way out to look at it negatively, and everybody loves that because it just makes you feel so much better. But on the other hand, I believe that everybody has a purpose for being here.
You bet.
Not like robots, but
You
everybody
bet.
has a purpose. So whether
Totally
you're
agree.
yeah, whether you're, the best cook in your house, the best mother, the best auto mechanic, the best president, I don't care what it is. It doesn't have to be a billboard. But
Hmm.
as long as you can be the best that you are in your purpose, you are automatically a leader anyhow in that instance. But we're all here for a reason. So let's find that reason, that purpose, and embrace it, knowing yourself, and then lead by example in that role. So there's no need to be negative. The only need to be negative is if we're living someone else's lives and not ours.
Yeah, that's such huge advice. It's so impactful. And once you do that, it's freedom. It's freedom.
Mhm.
It frees you from just this entire negative aura because you now understand, there's a fate and a destiny aspect to every human being, and you're on this earth for this time around 80 or 90 years, say, and you have to make the best of every single day, and it's just starts with you. I'm a big believer. Many of my listeners will roll their eyes because they probably have heard this 40 times already, but I believe in the victor and victim kind of
Uh-huh.
mentalities, right? Like the rain is a great example that you use. The victim says, it's raining out, I can't wear my white pants, and I'm going to go through the mud puddles. The victor says, this is the rain needed so that my grass will grow better, or the flowers sure needed, or what it's been weeks since it's rained, what a wonderful day, let's dance in the puddles. It's a victor victim, same scenario, but it's all about how you see life, and it always
Yeah.
does start with you. Talk.
Absolutely. And the victim and the victor, one of my dear friends and former client talks a lot about archetypes, and we all have
Mm,
those in us, right? And
you
and
bet.
those are like the spiritual archetypes. We all have them. And yes, there is a time for us to live out our victim, right? But once
Huh.
we live that out, we need to move back towards the victor. And
That's right.
when you started out just now, you said, but there comes that freedom. And one thing that I always say in that respect is it just takes one step to freedom. If you take that first step, it's not work. People are afraid of working on themselves, right? But it's just that one step. And once you realize, wow, this like helps me smile a little better. Once you get that wow feeling on the inside, all the next steps are just like so easy. It's like taking a walk in the park. And yes,
Yes.
every now and then you journal or you do something else, but it's you get more and more love for to and from yourself, and there's hardly anything better than that.
You bet. Amen to that. I will tell you. I'll give you, a great example that I reflect on as you were talking is before we started recording, I was giving Natalie a bit of my background, and as most of the viewers know, I was in special forces for 20 years, and you're stereotyped being a special forces person, right? They think you're a knuckle dragger, and you go out there and you fight these wars, or you do humanitarian actions, and you're jumping out of airplanes in the middle of the night, all those things. A lot of that's all true, but you're very stereotyped. When I left special forces and started to lead large organizations, I had to fight through those stereotypes of who I was. But the one thing that I knew that I was true to was myself. And
Yes.
I always said to myself, Natalie, I said, like, I know who I am as a leader. And I proved it when I was in the teams and special forces, but I know it will work at the enterprise level to large organizations. And by staying true to myself, I felt that sense of freedom. I felt like I can get up every day and be me, and that's
Mhm.
so empowering. It really is, and I thank you for bringing that to our attentions about how it always has to start with you. It has to start with you.
And it's something that I think for many people is a challenge. The
Is it a
reason,
confidence issue?
yeah, to some degree, and I would say it's confidence and love for oneself at the heart of it. But before that or around that, what it is really social conditioning.
Mm,
What I mean by that, and, especially maybe because I'm a woman, but I know plenty of men who feel the same way. We live in a world, and maybe that's changing right now,
mm,
where thinking about me or taking time for me or saying no to something because I don't like it is really frowned upon. We're usually being asked to, go with the group and take care of others, not in the way that I started our conversation out about
right.
20 minutes ago, but in the
Yep.
way of put everybody else first, live their lives, and if you make it to retirement, then you can live your life. So if we're trying to take care of our own emotional, spiritual, religious, whatever needs, we're being considered as narcissistic, egocentric,
Mm,
whatever. And I think having experienced it myself is how I got here, of course, is just being able to tell somebody, I'm going to close the door to my room for 20 minutes because I need to be alone right now. And saying that from love, not because you're upset with the other person, but because I know myself and I know if I'm going to be around everybody else even longer, I'm going
mm.
to be in a really bad mood in about 10 minutes max. And I don't think that serves anybody. So I'm going to close my door. I'm going to read a book, meditate, listen to loud, whatever I'm going to do at that time. I
Yep.
need that time. And when I come out, I'm going to be so much better for everybody else, you know? But
Of course.
a lot of
It's
people
the
don't
reset button.
understand that. Yes,
So
yes.
you made this small statement, but
Oh.
I want to kind of put a spotlight on it because this is where I don't have real experience on.
Mhm,
And you said you made one comment about from a woman's perspective. So
mhm,
I'd love to know about what we're just talking about, basically from the gender point of view, right? Like, so you have
mm,
these alpha males, I'm air quoting
mhm,
right now, but you have alpha males that are saying you should act like this, you should do that, and all that stuff. One, is there such thing as an alpha female that
mhm.
acts those same ways as a leader? But two, do you believe, from a female point of view, that there are some preset expectations from a female leader's point of view compared to a male point of view? And I just would love your perspective on this because I can't see it.
Yes.
You know,
Yes,
I'm
yes,
blind
yes.
to it. So I'd love to have you
And I
expose some of that.
appreciate your
Yeah.
honesty about that.
Yeah. I'm a male.
No,
So yeah, I don't know what it's
absolutely.
like to walk in your shoes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very simple. I mean, you can look at everyday life. And I am, by the way, I have to put that out too. I'm not your typical feminist or anything like that. I love to cook and take care of my family while I'm doing
Hmm.
everything else. And most people, when they meet me, will automatically say I'm an alpha. Just because of how I do things. Even my husband says it. And at the same time, I I see society reacting differently to how a woman says things and how a man says things. And it can be the exact same thing. It can be the exact same thing, but women still in today's world are tend to be questioned more, especially if it's in an environment where quote unquote, those air quotes, they don't fit.
Mm,
Um, so if you're in education, of course, people will listen to you because you're a woman. But if you're talking to reorganizing the educational system, it becomes a little harder because now you're talking about systems and
ha.
scientific data and research. How can you know this? Or when you walk into a room, can I wear a dress
Mhm.
or do I wear a pantsuit? What am I going to say just by the way that I walk in? There are a lot more questions, and on a psychological level, there are, of course, the ideas that if you tell me I'm wrong because I'm a woman, I'm gonna start crying.
Mm.
And
Right.
so, it's like walking on eggshells, and I was, "No, I'm not gonna cry. I know what I can and cannot do." But when I say that, then people will not call me assertive, but they will use a different word for that. Um,
It's in it's
so there's
interesting.
a difference.
Yeah, and from I well, I don't even want to.
Mm,
I don't even know how to properly even say this, but like, let's just say from a what I believe is a 21st century male leader's perspective in the year of 2020, I I feel like most of those things we've overcome. My assumption is my blind assumption is, hey, we've overcome that. I don't see it either as a male or a female. I look at a leader, or this person has potential, all those kind of things. But again, it's what I'm fearful of is my unconscious,
mhm,
you know, abilities to really do that. I feel like I have an unconscious bias still because I
mhm.
think it's just always there. And I readily admit, I assume it's all over in the year of 2020, but it more than likely is not, right?
Right, yeah. No, it is not, and I need to throw something in that I have plenty of evidence for, that also puts you a little bit into a different category, and I mean you as a person.
Mm,
What makes your perspective a little different from others is your military experience.
mm.
And I've actually done research on that, way back when, when I got the PhD and was just a historian and not combining all of those things. I actually worked on topics related to the military.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so military personnel, they have a different system.
Mm,
After the Vietnam War, not to go into history, for example, a lot of things changed in the military, and they came together as a much more equal society within the broader society. So that if you got to the rank of captain, if you got to the rank of X, there was a reason for it. It was skill based. It was not because you were a woman, it was not
yep.
because you were a man. There's that understanding within the military. And I'm not saying that still is the same way today because every society institution undergoes changes.
Sure.
In the other part of society, if you look at it, and I used to laugh about that, I still do. You get advertisements, you get ads for jobs, and on the bottom, it will say things such as women and people with disabilities are encouraged to apply.
Mm, mhm. I've seen
Okay.
them. Yep. You
Right.
bet.
And then when you get into a job, you may be the most qualified person, but we know there's a quota system in place right now. So, different ethnic groups, different genders, knowing that makes it at times more difficult. Not always, because
Right.
every institution is also different, but it can make it very, very difficult to earn the trust and the confidence of the people you are, for example, supposed to lead. Some of them may look at you and say, "Of course she got the job. She's a woman. We don't have enough women
Mm,
in the
right.
C-suite right now."
Right.
And those are the things. They're not necessarily mean-spirited, but it is, as you mentioned, it's the subconscious mind. It's the way that, "Oh, I've been here for 20 years, but I didn't get the job because I'm a guy. And what does she know? And why is she bringing the meeting up like that?" So there are things like that. And to some degree, women are even worse at that.
Mm, that's
Be-
interesting.
Yes. And I want to
That's a
bring that
big
in because
statement.
I'm not at
Yeah.
all into male bashing, okay?
Yeah.
Not at all. Um, but it is
So
when you look at women, when you look at women, it is very difficult. It's gotten a little better, but it's very difficult for women to support one another.
is it because it's dog eat dog? Is it culturally? You know what? That's a pretty big statement.
I know.
That it's difficult for women to support each other. Why is that? What makes you say that?
Experience.
Okay.
um, where I have and it's like 50-50 or 35-35, whatever, 25, right? Um, there are some women who are very good in supporting other women, and it's gotten better. However, in general, there's a fear that if she gets the job, I won't. There's a lot of I don't know how to explain it. There's a lot of backstabbing. This comes from experience and also from helping to run a women's organization, which is not a women's organization, it just has the word women in it, men
Mm,
play in it too. But trying to connect different organizations where the majority is women is very difficult. If we're just trying to collaborate, they're like, whoa, 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 no, this is my space. I own this space. I'm not going to
ah,
help you into the space. I've made it here. Um, there's a lot of that protection or that, and I call it fear. That fear based on taking the next step, society, there are only X amount of roles for women currently in society. So if I'm holding that spot, I cannot let you in there because there's not enough, which goes back to mindset, or as I call it, mind flex, and saying
huh.
there's a lack of everything. So there are those two, different areas where women can be really, really hard on one another. And some women are good, um, and they're getting better. And some men are really hard on it, and then some men are better at it. It's societal education and training,
Yep.
and then added to that is what you believe, what you have been taught by society, by your parents, and all of that.
It is an interesting dynamic where I can absolutely see from your conversation about survival of the fittest that,
Hmm.
you know, if a female makes it into a certain area and she's the first female or there aren't many other females, you know, you're going to want to hold that position and you've worked hard for it and all of that. But this goes back to any of the victim victors or any when
Hmm.
we talk about pure freedom, the fact that you know you want to involve as many as possible, you want to show as many as possible, like how you got to those areas, and it would just benefit you that much more. But I there is an understanding, I can understand how that atmosphere is created, and it's just interesting. Again, it goes back to kind of perspective and
Hmm.
recognizing these things and just knowing about it. So Natalie, kind of staying there, and we hear people, you know, people hear us talking about, ooh, you know, there's pluses and minuses to that. There still is unconscious bias from a female to female perspective. There's potentially, you know, a survival of the fittest. Talk to me though, because I know that you've got quite a bit of experience in this. Talk to me about the benefits of diversity and inclusion, though, like the power of diversity and inclusion that any leader that's listening to this podcast, any follower that's listening to this podcast, shouldn't be afraid of the things that we just talk about, but should be empowered by understanding what true diversity means, what inclusion means, and things like that. I'd love to know your opinions on that.
Oh, I love that. Now, first of all, I hope it's clear that I am a revolutionary in more than one ways, which is why I speak so openly. Okay, um,
Yeah.
when it comes to inclusion and diversity, um, and all of those catchphrases, just like when it comes to hire a woman because we don't have enough, right? Um, don't do it for that reason. Do it because you want the expertise that somebody brings to the table. So, as a leader, if you want diversity and inclusion, first, what is required is that you know, and I said this earlier, what your strengths and weaknesses are. What holds or what sides, what aspects of a project or your team can you not fulfill that you need somebody else for? Bring in the expert. And every individual has a purpose and has an expertise. As long as we acknowledge that expertise, whether they're black, white, yellow, or purple, green, gender this, gender that, doesn't really matter. We have to look at the expertise of an individual. And when we're talking about a big organization, and I can give two examples, but one of the ones that I help run is we're global. So by us being able to listen to the person from Spain and hearing how things are done in Spain helps us at the home office to grow and improve and speak to those needs. At the same time, even within the US, Las Vegas is different from Atlanta, different from
Hmm,
Baltimore.
you
I
bet.
need to listen to all of those leaders in those three fictional cities right now to figure out how can we as an organization from the home office serve our leaders in those cities, our leaders in those countries, and thereby by extension everybody better. If I don't listen to the experts from where they are, I'm going to fail. And that means I don't trust myself. I don't trust them. I'm not able to say, wow, I didn't know that. And I'm not willing to say, I thought it was this way, but now you've said B. B makes a lot more sense. That means I'm confident and I'm listening. Um, and in other words, talking as a leader for business, if I need to do everything myself, then number one, I've got an issue.
You
But
bet you do. That's right. That's a
number
sign of a
two,
failure of a leader. That's right.
I mean, I can create a video, of course, but I'm not a videographer. So I need to talk to my videographer or our company's videographer to put together the best ad, the best promo that they can. I can say whether I like it and what I want in there, but I need to trust that they're the experts and their work, they're bringing in their expertise. Now I've got the videographer, then I have a photographer, then I got an editor who's going to write the script. I could probably do most of that, but would it be as good as it can be? And so the inclusion and diversity is not just gender, ethnicity based, it is skill based, it is expertise based. And
Right.
that's what we need to really rely on. And that makes us as leaders stronger, it makes this team stronger, and it helps grow our reach with whatever we're trying to get to the rest of the world.
And when you're coaching, is inclusion and diversity one of the few things that you look at fairly soon in a coaching engagement? Do you bring this up to a leader that you're coaching about what is their perspective on inclusion and diversity? Do you look at the organization and just kind of see the obvious if it's not, if there is no diversity or inclusion? How do you approach that when you're coaching someone? And how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is diversity and inclusion?
The diversity of expertise and team members being in the right spot
Mm,
is is the key. I mean, that's like the
all
secret
right.
sauce, right? So, um, do I bring it up by looking at a leader, at a CEO, saying, "So, how many people of this, and this do you have?" No,
Hmm.
I tend to, and this is where what I do gets very personal. Um, I walk around and I first talk to the leader, and then I bring in the team, and we will have a team meeting in which I observe. I will ask questions, and I will observe the interactions because it's all in the interactions of the
Mm,
team and the leadership, and the leader is part of the team. So that is where you, in my opinion, get the most information about what is going on in the company, their body language, the words they use, the way that they approach each other. That's all you need to then say, okay, now let's sit down. And you talk with every member individually about their leadership skills. And then you bring it back together and you train them on how to communicate, how to approach one another, and how to commit to each other, because teams are a commitment to each other. If I'm sick, can you help me out without thinking I just don't want to do the work?
Right.
If I make a mistake, can I ask you for advice? Those items are crucial if you want a team to succeed.
And it sounds like, yeah, when you go through that process, okay, yep, you're kind of subtly addressing inclusion and diversity, but the real realities are, I think you're addressing, are they a high performing organization or not, right? Which includes
Absolutely.
diversity and it includes experience, it includes self recognition, it's all that. But like you're able to tell just by the dynamics within the room if they are a high performing organization or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can see it pretty much from the moment that you walk into the office where there's a receptionist. Right from
Mm,
that moment, you can already see what's going on. And you know that. I mean, you
yeah.
do leadership training and develop, when you come in, you get a sense of, wow, something is amiss. And then, you try to just put it down on your pad of paper and try to be open-minded. And it just keeps getting confirmed. Or you see, wow, the people over here to our left, they're different. They seem to actually be fully functioning, successful, you take note of that and you need to bring that in, which is why when working with companies or groups, I think it's so important to do a more individualized assessment. We all have the questions that we come with. That is our initial, intake or whatever you want to call it. But you really need to do that personalized approach to figure out what is going on and where exactly do we need to go in and help.
Yeah, totally agree. It's interesting in these conversations that I have with senior leaders. Deloitte last year came out with a white paper on kind of the global state of affairs of leadership, and
Hmm.
one of the statistics that came out of it was shocking to me. They said that 70%, 70%
Hmm.
of CEOs globally did not possess the talent within their own organization today to carry out their current strategies. And, it's a little shocking, right? Okay, to have a CEO say, hey, 70% of the people that I have aren't actually either in the right position within the organization or have the skill sets that you were referring to
Hmm.
earlier to carry out my strategy. And when they dug down even deeper into that, one of the things that was a failure was a look back on leadership development courses for the last 20 years have kind of failed organizations as a whole because it didn't get us what we needed to do. But it was a lot of it had to deal with CEOs were underdeveloped, or just executives as a whole are underdeveloped. And so they're leading from a deficit because they don't know what right looks like. So, my self reflection into your comments about, hey, what that looks like, a high performing organization or not from the minute you walk into the reception area and all that. One of the things that I would argue is I think when you're exposed to a non high performing organization, it's more than likely reflective of the leadership themselves because they don't know what right looks like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that goes back to leadership starts with yourself, right? I mean, it all starts there. And it's funny that you're mentioning some of those aspects because yeah, I did research on why do so many companies have what like 69%, 83% of disengaged
Yeah.
actually be actionable disengaged people, and it always comes down to the leadership. And yeah, I wrote this book about increasing performance, especially in the healthcare system, because that was like a peak project of mine, but it applies to everything. We need to know our team members. We need to treat them and our clients or participants as human beings. If we don't do that, and if we don't treat ourselves as that, then we will just hire for numbers. We will only look at the resume. We will assign a job based on the resume or because we have this job open, and we will not get somebody who actually is perfect for that job. Sometimes it means in team building and hyper performing organizations that we need to switch people around after we talk to them. Just
That's the
because
key.
you have a degree in CPA doesn't mean that that's really what you're good at. Maybe you're much better over here. So let me talk to you and let me see, would you be better over here? And somebody else in your position. I mean, it has to do with really knowing your employees, knowing really the people who help you succeed.
Yeah, there, Natalie, you're so spot on with this. It's so interesting to really understand if you have such low employee engagement that it isn't necessarily because the business situation is poor there. You probably have really good people. They're just in the wrong places.
Yes.
And it goes back to put the Jim Collins, putting the people on the bus in the right seats and all of those kind of things. And all those analogies are all true because it is about when you have low employee engagement, the very fact that they're disengaged for a reason, and more than likely they have great skills and talents. They're just in the wrong place.
Right. And then, the next piece, and this has to do again, going back to the leader. How is the leader communicating the vision, the mission, the humanity of everything? Why did these employees get hired? What did they think they signed up for? And what are they doing right now? Is there a disconnect between the mission and the vision of the company and what's actually happening? That is another key component here. I mean, a lot of people will be willing to do a job, to even volunteer their time for something that they might not really get excited about if
Right.
they understand why it matters to them, the team, and the overall organization or humanity at large, wherever you want to
Yeah.
take this. But, there's that miscommunication, or I always point out the leader who on TV will say, "Oh, all of my employees, blah 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 blah," but the leader, the CEO, never stops by and says hello to the janitor or knows the name of the receptionist in the main office where he never is, or he doesn't even know that his secretary, assistant, whatever terminology is appropriate right now, has two kids. You
Right.
know, that 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 is crucial, that human connection and that understanding of who is here and why.
And let me ask you this. Can you be a great leader without having human connection?
No.
Pretty simple, huh? That
Then
was
you're a
that was a pretty
manager. You're
affirmative.
a
Yeah.
manager at that point, right? You push buttons.
Yes. You push buttons. Yep. The one of the easiest things you remember, right? You manage things and you
Mhm.
lead people. Yeah.
Right.
It's such a simple statement, but again, unless you actually do it, it gets executed poorly. But it's such a simple formula for people to remember.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So, one last thing. I know we're coming up on an hour, Natalie.
Mhm.
This has just been a fascinating conversation. And I want to circle back to your three R's and the last part because I want to leave on a real high note. And it's about the last R when you talk about recognition and reward. Talk to me a little bit more about why you created that last R and what have you done in your life experiences or in your research to show that recognition is important, whether you're just tapping your own shoulder and saying you did a great job today, or learning the power of recognition and reward for others. What do you Why did you say that third R is that important?
Because I think it's often done incorrectly.
Oh, okay.
Um, actually, I I I believe that every human being does what they do for a reason. Some want money, some want prestige, etc., etc., and
Yeah,
and
they're
some
motivators.
just want the recognition. So recognition, however, and this is where it goes back to know yourself and know your team members. Everybody needs different recognition. Very simple example. Not everybody likes to be called up to the front of the room and receive a certificate.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
because we've all gotten
Absolutely. You
tired.
see that
The
every
whole
single day.
team is getting
Hmm.
called up. It's like, woohoo, you all did. Everybody, after a while, you're like, okay, I don't want the certificate. If my boss, my leader would just say, good job, that's all I need. So, some people just need to hear from others, job well done. Recognize those people that way. The ones who want to be called up to the front of the room and presented with a certificate, give them that. Others might prefer, and everybody gets a certificate because you need it in your annual professional development, whatever. But others might prefer, instead of the certificate and the making you famous in the whole company, they might prefer to get a $20 gift card that they can give to their kids to buy a book. So everybody wants to be recognized differently. And every single human being that I have come across looks for some kind of recognition. We always want to
Yeah.
say, I recognize myself from within. Yeah, sure. I know I've done a job. Good. But even if I'm just talking to myself, and that's where it's important to celebrate every single step. Okay. So, for
Yes.
example, for you, right? I would recommend that once this conversation is over and you hit the stop button, that you do a little victory dance because you've completed another really important interview that will help your audience.
Yeah.
It might
It's
not
very
feel
true.
like, "Oh, I've done something great," but it's another thing that you have accomplished
You
because
bet.
little kids, I always go back to little kids, right? They start crawling, right? And what do the parents and everybody do? They start clapping, "Oh, you're crawling, yay." Now, because of that, what does that kid do next? It starts try to walk. And again,
Right.
everybody goes, "Wow, awesome." Right? So
Right.
cheering on from the inside, from the outside, that is what everybody needs, their own way. However, your employee, your team
Yeah.
member needs
Yeah.
it, that's how we need to recognize them and ourselves. That's why it's so important.
I think you're so right on that. Is that it's we've kind of hinted at some primal things, and I think this is one of them, that everybody wants some form of recognition. Everybody wants to know that even if it's joy for what they're doing, that they see that someone else recognizes that, hey, I can see the joy that you bring, or I can see that how happy this job is, and you make my job easier because you're so happy, or on and on and on, all those things. It's just this primal need to know that you've done a great job, or to even kind of see it. It's really interesting. I'll tell you though, Natalie, one of the things when I was in the military, I had those same scenarios about the people that didn't want to come up on stage
Mhm.
and get their certificate or get a medal, or and they're like, "Oh, I don't need that. I'm a leader. Let my young people." And I was like, the thing about award ceremonies in those kind of situations is a lot of the time it's not about you, right? So if the person's up there getting an award, what I tell those people that are like, "Hey, I really don't want to do that," is sometimes think of it in these terms. Think about the people in the audience. The people in the audience that are watching you get that certificate, watching you get that award, are people that are tied to your success. You know, that's your team watching you have success. That's your boss watching you have success. Your followers watching you have success. So a lot of those situations, when I talk to up and coming leaders, I go, don't underplay how important those little certificates are. And it's not about their certificate, right? It's about everybody. It's about teaching others the importance of recognition and reward. It is that passing of the baton down, the things that you talk about, your 3 R's. You have to show those things to others so that they, again, it goes back to, okay, this is what right looks like,
Mhm.
you know? Yeah, it is interesting. I think your 3 R's are just an amazing, simple reminder about how a lot of being a leader is fairly simple. It's just a matter of using some sort of process technique to remind you of that every once in a while. And the 3 R's certainly are that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. I couldn't agree more.
So, Natalie, as we're rounding out the hour here, is there one last piece of advice that you'd love to leave the tribe here with a little nugget of wisdom on? And we've kind of wandered a strange trail of different nuggets of information about being a leader and being a good human yourself. Is there something that you want us to know that maybe we haven't brought up yet?
I don't really know, but I think, the one thing I always tell people, and it's very simple and almost sounds cliche. I just don't think it's really done well in most instances. And that is, in whatever you do, be you. It's that authenticity that can help shape everything you will ever touch. So I just want everybody to be themselves, to live their lives however they choose, without hurting anybody. But just having that piece of be you. You're here for a reason.
Yeah.
Claim that reason and be it.
Claim it and be it. I love it. What a fantastic way to leave the podcast this afternoon with a simple call to action that all it takes is looking in the mirror at yourself and be the best you. Fantastic. Thanks again, Dr. Forrest. I am going to call you Dr. Forrest one last time. Natalie, you've been great, and I look forward to more conversations with you.
Thank you so much, James. And I hope this helped a little bit for anybody who's listening.
Awesome. I know it has. And I will celebrate the fact that we have done this podcast. So thanks again.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining our leadership movement this week. We really enjoyed talking to Dr. Forrest about being the authentic you. Don't forget our show notes are posted on the website with key leader takeaways and suggested action plans. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and tell a friend so we can continue to build on our tribe. Join our Facebook group to get even more behind-the-scenes action and exclusive content for leaders. Until next time, remember that iron sharpens iron. Make yourself and others around you better every single day.